So happy Wednesday, February 10th. Northside wants us to keep our cameras on and wants me to tell you, so I have told you I am a good person. Today we will read. Yay, I love reading. Using our imagination and prior knowledge to build comprehension and fluency. And it's just reality, right? If you're imagining it, you're going to enjoy it, you're going to understand it. And just the idea that, wow, this is actually pretty cool. I had no idea an old story could be so interesting. And of course, it's not going to be like watching the Avengers movies or anything like that. It's only got to give what it has to give. But if you keep imagining it, you'd be surprised what you learn. And of course, this is the mindset, right? I will do the work now. Let me do it now so I don't have to worry about it later. It's just an old bad habit to wait. So let's take care of business as soon as possible instead of putting it off to the end. So I will discuss and consider the implications of the dilemma and theme and from our work from a couple of days ago, which I've now finished grading. This dilemma, this what do I do? There's no easy answer, and that's the way most things are in life, right? And theme, what's the message about life, about human nature? We'll be thinking about that too as we read. And for close, well, it's the same discussion we're about to have here in class. And I want you to think about this. How is technology hurting us? Yes, we know technology does a lot of good. We couldn't be in class like this, safe from each other's possible coronavirus spread. We couldn't be home doing this if we didn't have technology. And then, of course, the vaccines that are now available that people are starting to get, we need technology. We know in the past, millions and millions and millions of people died from viruses, and that just doesn't happen anymore. And of course, that wouldn't be true without technology that we have, like when we read about the Spanish flu. But I want you to think about it. This ability to just stay home all the time and never go anywhere, is that really good for us? And other questions that you can think about. And then, do you think today's parents let technology do too much of the parenting? Of course, as a teenager, you don't want your parents bothering you, but think about younger kids and teenagers too. You know, do we need all the freedom and all the alone time that we have? Is it really good for us? And it's a real question that's being asked not just in English class, but around the world. All right, before we do anything else, let's do our positive affirmations. Tell ourselves how to think and what to do so we can be positive on purpose. So say them with me. What are you? I am strong, confident, and successful. Yes, we are. And how do we feel about reading? I love reading. So much fun. And how do you feel about schoolwork? The harder I work, the stronger I become. Absolutely. And I think I have a little Carvajal comedy. 100 years ago, everyone owned a horse and only the rich had cars. Today, everyone has cars and only the rich own horses. The stables have turned. Get it? Stables instead of tables. Stables, horses. Yeah, that's really corny. Oh well. Okay, so here we are at Wednesday's work, February 10th. You can click here to open up your own copy of the Velt. And our discussion questions. And I want you to think about this. How is technology hurting us? And yes, technology has helped us in so many ways. Obviously, things are better overall, right? This virus that we're dealing with is nowhere near as deadly as Spanish flu that happened about 100 years ago. And a big part of it is because, right, we're able to create these vaccines. People are able to stay home and stay safe. So technology is helping us, but how is technology hurting us? How much is spending 15, 20 hours a day staring at a screen affecting us? And then the fake lives that we create on social media. There was a great cartoon a while back where it was a funeral and they were like 5 people there and 2 of them look at each other and say, wow, this is it? That's crazy, because he had over 500 friends on Facebook. Well, but how many real friends do people have when they're just connecting online? How real is it? So that's a good question. So what do you think about that? You can put it into our discussion. And then, do you think today's parents let technology do too much of the parenting? How many of you have a little brother or sister or cousin that has their own cell phone, has their own smartphone. How many times do we see parents giving kids iPads to play with to shut them up instead of letting them go outside or play with the ball or, hey, read a book? And we see that more and more. That's becoming normal, and we don't think about it because we're in the middle of it. I think it started back with my generation when VCRs became normal, and parents would say, "Oh, I just put a movie on and let the kids watch, so they'll stay out of trouble. I don't have to pay attention to them." And that has grown, that attitude of let the VCR, let the DVD, let the Blu-ray, let the smartphone, let the Xbox keep the kids entertained, so we don't have to pay attention to them, continues to grow in our current day and age. So you can talk about that amongst yourselves, talk about it in the discussion question and add to it. And then we're going to read this story, which was written in 1951 and gives us an interesting look at how they thought things would be in the future. And if you read, you will notice some of the things we really do have right now. A lot of the smart home technology, but not to that level. We don't have a stove that will literally prepare dinner and serve us. And they talk about kids taking helicopter rides to get somewhere. But one thing they mention is video calls, which of course most of us have access to FaceTime or definitely Zoom or things like that. So read along, think about the technology we have versus what he imagines, and you'll see some differences. And then as we're reading, think about these two questions because they're important for us to ask and think about. Think about the dilemma, how much is too much, and then the themes that are coming through as we read this. One thing you'll definitely notice is they talk about it's tape, like audio tape, videotape. Computers back in the day were all getting their information on tape. They didn't have, jump drives. They didn't have the internet to get information. They were feeding information in on punch cards, like just punch cards, and they were putting reel-to-reel tapes and feeding the information into computers that way. So when they talk about tape, that's what they're talking about. Like that's how you used to put data into a computer so the computer could work with it. And of course, any smartphone of today can run circles around the biggest, fanciest computer from the 1950s. So things have changed a lot. All right, so let's go ahead and go over to the belt, part 1. Open it up and read along with me. And of course, we will be finishing it tomorrow. All right, look at that lion. Yeah, they are big. It's got something. Developed by Ray Bradbury. This is written, like I said, in 1951. And let's use our imagination. George, I wish you'd look at the nursery. What's wrong with it? I don't know. Well then, I just want you to look at it is all. Or call a psychologist in to look at it. What would a psychologist want with a nursery? You know very well what he'd want. His wife paused in the middle of the kitchen and watched the stove busy humming to itself, making supper for 4. Look at that. Do we have stoves that can literally cook for us? Not yet. It's just that the nursery is different now than it was. All right, let's have a look. They walked down the hall of their soundproof Happy Life home, which had cost them $30,000 installed. Now it'd probably be $500,000, right? This house, which clothed and fed and rocked them to sleep and played and sang, was good to them. Think about that. Is your house good to you? Their approach sensitized a switch somewhere, and the nursery light flicked on when they came within 10 feet of it. Similarly, behind them in the halls, lights went on and off as they left them behind, with a soft automaticity. Well, said George Hadley. They stood on the thatched floor of the nursery. It was 40 feet across by 40 feet long and 30 feet high. It had cost half again as much as the rest of the house. But nothing's too good for our children, George had said. The nursery was silent. It was empty as a jungle glade at hot, high noon. The walls were blank and two-dimensional. Now, as George and Lydia Hadley stood in the center of the room, The walls began to purr and recede into crystalline distance, it seemed, and presently an African veldt appeared in 3 dimensions on all sides, in color reproduced to the final pebble and bit of straw. The ceiling above them became a deep sky with a hot yellow sun. So if you can imagine the documentaries they show, the grass, the lions, the sun, you got a good picture of a veldt there, right? George Hadley felt the perspiration start on his brow. "Let's get out of this sun," he said. "This is a little too real, but I don't see anything wrong." "Wait a moment. You'll see," said his wife. Now the hidden odorophonics were beginning to blow a wind of odor at the 2 people in the middle of the baked veldt, and the hot straw smell of lion grass, the cool green smell of the hidden water hole, the great rusty smell of animals, the smell of dust like red paprika in the hot air. And now the sounds, the thump of distant antelope feet on grassy sod, the paper rustling of vultures. A shadow passed through the sky. The shadow flickered on George Hadley's upturned, sweating face. "Filthy creatures," he heard his wife say. "The vultures?" "You see, there are the lions, far over that way. Now they're on their way to the water hole. They've just been eating," said Lydia. "I don't know what." "Some animal." George Hadley put his hand up to shield off the burning light from his squinting eyes. "A zebra or baby giraffe, maybe." "Are you sure?" His wife sounded peculiarly tense. "No, it's a little late to be sure," he said, amused. "Nothing over there I can see but cleaned bone and the vultures dropping for what's left." "Did you hear that scream?" she asked. "No." "About a minute ago?" "Sorry, no." The lions were coming. And again, George Hadley was filled with admiration for the mechanical genius who had conceived this room. A miracle of efficiency selling for an absurdly low price. Every home should have one. Oh, occasionally they frightened you with their clinical accuracy. They startled you, gave you a twinge. But most of the time, what fun for everyone. Not only your own son and daughter, but for yourself, when you felt like a quick jaunt to a foreign land, a quick change of scenery. Well, here it was. And here were the lions now, 15 feet away, so real, so feverishly and startlingly real that you could feel the prickling fur on your hand, and your mouth was stuffed with dusty upholstery smell of their heated pelts, and the yellow of them was in your eyes, like the yellow of an exquisite French tapestry, the yellow of lions and summer grass, and the sound of matted lion lungs exhaling on the silent noontide, and the smell of meat from the panting, dripping mouths. The lions stood looking at George and Lydia Hadley with terrible green-yellow eyes. "Watch out!" screamed Lydia. The lions came running at them. Lydia bolted and ran. Instinctively, George sprang after her. Outside in the hall, with the door slammed, he was laughing, and she was crying. And they both stood appalled at the other's reaction. "George!" "Lydia. Oh, my dear, poor, sweet Lydia. They almost got us." "Walls, Lydia, remember? Crystal walls, that's all they are. Oh, they look real, I must admit. Africa in your parlor, but it's all direct, dimensional, super reactionary, super sensitive color film and mental tape film behind glass screens. It's all odorophonics and sonics, Lydia. Here's my handkerchief." "I'm afraid." She came to him and put her body against him and cried steadily. "Did you see? Did you feel? It's too real." "Now, Lydia, you've got to tell Wendy and Peter not to read any more on Africa." Of course, he patted her. "Promise?" "Sure." "And lock the nursery for a few days until I get my nerves settled." You know how difficult Peter is about that. When I punished him a month ago by locking the nursery for even a few hours, the tantrum he threw. And Wendy, too. They'd live for the nursery. "It's got to be locked. That's all there is to it." "All right." Reluctantly, he locked the huge door. "You've been working too hard. You need a rest." I don't know, she said, blowing her nose, sitting down in a chair that immediately began to rock and comfort her. "Maybe I don't have enough to do. Maybe I have time to think too much. Why don't we shut the whole house off for a few days and take a vacation?" "You mean you want to fry my eggs for me?" "Yes," she nodded. "And darn my socks?" "Yes," a frantic, watery-eyed nodding. "And sweep the house?" "Yes, oh yes." But I thought that's why we bought this house, so we wouldn't have to do anything. That's just it. I feel like I don't belong here. The house is wife and mother now, and nursemaid. Can I compete with an African belt? Can I give a bath and scrub the children as efficiently or quickly as the automatic scrub bath can? I cannot. And it isn't just me, it's you. You've been awfully nervous lately. I suppose I have been smoking too much. You look as if you didn't know what to do with yourself in this house either. You smoke a little more every morning and drink a little more every afternoon and need a little more sedative every night. You're beginning to feel unnecessary too. Am I? He paused and tried to feel into himself to see what was really there. Oh, George. She looked beyond him at the nursery door. Those lions can't get out of there, can you? He looked at the door and saw it tremble, as if something had jumped against it from the other side. Of course not, he said. At dinner, they ate alone, for Wendy and Peter were at a special plastic carnival across town and had televised home to say they'd be late, to go ahead eating. So George Hadley, bemused, sat watching the dining room table produce warm dishes of food from its mechanical interior. We forgot the ketchup, he said. Sorry, said a small voice within the table, and ketchup appeared. That'd be pretty cool. I'd like to have that. As for the nursery, thought George Hadley, it won't hurt for the children to be locked out of it for a while. Too much of anything isn't good for anyone, and it was clearly indicated that the children had been spending a little too much time on Africa. That sun, how could he feel it on his neck, still, like a hot paw, and the lions, and the smell of blood. Remarkable how the nursery caught the telepathic emanations from the children's minds and created life to fill their every desire. The children thought lions, and there were lions. The children thought zebras, and there were zebras. Sun, sun, giraffes, giraffes, death, and death. That last, he chewed tastelessly on the meat that the table had cut for him. Death thoughts. They were awfully young, Wendy and Peter, for death thoughts. Or, no, you were never too young, really. Long before you knew what death was, you were wishing it on someone else. When you were 2 years old, you were shooting people with cap pistols. But this, the long, hot African veldt, the awful death in the jaws of a lion, and repeated again and again. Where are you going? He didn't answer Lydia. Preoccupied, he let the lights glow softly on ahead of him, extinguish behind him as he padded to the nursery door. He listened against it. Far away, a lion roared. He unlocked the door and opened it. Just before he stepped inside, he heard a faraway scream, and then another roar from the lions, which subsided quickly. He stepped into Africa. How many times in the last year had he opened this door and found Wonderland, Alice, the Mock Turtle, or Aladdin and his magical lamp, or Jack Pumpkinhead of Oz, or Dr. Dolittle, or the cow jumping over a very real appearing moon, all the delightful contraptions of a make-believe world. How often had he seen Pegasus flying in the sky ceiling, or seen fountains of red fireworks, or heard angel voices singing. But now, this yellow hot Africa, this bake oven with murder in the heat. Perhaps Lydia was right. Perhaps they needed a little vacation from the fantasy which was growing a bit too real for 10-year-old children. It was all right to exercise one's mind with gymnastic fantasies, but when the lively child mind settled on one pattern, it seemed that, at a distance, for the past month, he had heard lions roaring and smelled their strong odor seeping as far away as his study door, but being busy, he had paid it no attention. George Hadley stood on the African grassland alone. The lions looked up from their feeding, watching him. The only flaw in the illusion was the open door through which he could see his wife, far down the dark hall, like a framed picture eating her dinner. Abstractedly, "Go away," he said to the lions. They did not go. He knew the principle of the room exactly. You sent out your thoughts. Whatever you thought would appear. "Let's have Aladdin and his lamp," he snapped. The Veltland remained. The lions remained. "Come on, room. I demand Aladdin," he said. Nothing happened. The lions mumbled in their baked pelts. "Aladdin!" He went back to dinner. "The full room's out of order," he said. "It won't respond." Or what? "Or it can't respond," said Lydia. because the children have thought about Africa and lions and killing so many days that the room's in a rut. Could be. Or Peter said it to remain that way. Said it? He may have got into the machinery and fixed something. Peter doesn't know machinery. He's a wise one for 10, that IQ of his. Nevertheless. Hello, Mom. Hello, Dad. The Hadleys turned. Wendy and Peter were coming in the front door, cheeks like peppermint candy, eyes like bright blue agate marbles, the smell of ozone on their jumpers from their trip in the helicopter. You're just in time for supper, said both parents. We're full of strawberry ice cream and hot dogs, said the children, holding hands, but we'll sit and watch. Yes, come tell us about the nursery, said George Hadley. The brother and sister blinked at him and then at each other. Nursery? All about Africa and everything, said the father with false joviality. I don't understand, said Peter. Your mother and I were just traveling through Africa with rod and reel. Tom Swift and his electric lion, said George Hadley. There's no Africa in the nursery, said Peter simply. Oh, come now, Peter, we know better. I don't remember any Africa, said Peter to Wendy. Do you? No. Run see and come tell. She obeyed. Wendy, come back here, said George Hadley, but she was gone. The house lights followed her like a flock of fireflies. Too late, he realized he had forgotten to lock the nursery door after his last inspection. Wendy will come and tell us, said Peter. She doesn't have to tell me. I've seen it. I'm sure you're mistaken, Father. I'm not, Peter. Come along now. But Wendy was back. It's not Africa, she said breathlessly. We'll see about this, said George Hadley, and they all walked down the hall together and opened the nursery. There was a green, lovely forest, a lovely river, a purple mountain, high voices singing, and Rima, lovely and mysterious, lurking in the trees, with colorful flights of butterflies like animated bouquets lingering in her long hair. The African veltland was gone. The lions were gone. Only Rima was here now, singing a song so beautiful that it brought tears to your eyes. George Hadley looked at the changed scene. Go to bed, he said to the children. They opened their mouths. You heard me, he said. They went off to the air closet, where a wind sucked them like brown leaves up the flue of their slumber rooms. George Hadley walked through the singing glade and picked up something that lay in the corner near where the lions had been. He walked slowly back to his wife. What is that? She asked. An old wallet of mine, he said. He showed it to her. The smell of hot grass were on it, and the smell of a lion. There were drops of saliva on it. It had been chewed, and there were blood smears on both sides. He closed the nursery door and locked it tight. So what is going on with this family? Why are the kids lying? It's obvious they're lying, right? Why all the secrecy? Why the lies? And why is his wallet on the floor, his real wallet in the holograph playroom? If you know the answer, keep it to yourself. We're going to read the rest tomorrow. Once again, if you haven't already, go to the discussion. Tell us what you think about technology and how it's affecting us and how it's affecting parenting. And join us again tomorrow. We're going to finish up this story, and you're going to like it because you are smart, confident, and successful. See you then. Bye-bye.